Today's episode is brought to you by DeSanto Propane. DeSanto Propane is 4 generations strong as a trustworthy family-owned business with unmatched customer service. Go online at DeSantoPropane.com for more info or call toll-free at 1-800-752-4574. Since 1937, the difference has been DeSanto Propane. For FingerLakes1.com, I'm Josh Durso, and this is FLX Today. As we continue our 2023 Meet the Candidates series, we shift to Cayuga County, where a number of contested legislature races are taking shape. One of those is in District Number 1, where 3 people are on the ballot. Today, we are catching up with Jim Basile to talk about his campaign and the issues driving him. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us. Let's start here with the easiest question of the day. What was the decision process like for you to actually choose to run for District 1 office here?
So it goes back 2 years ago, actually 3 years ago, when I was asked to run for county legislator. I first had to discuss that with my wife because I knew I was already the mayor for the village of Fairhaven, and this was going to add more time that is precious to everybody, and family time. God, family, country is pretty much how I operate. And when she agreed to it, then I interviewed myself. I call it an interview. I talked with Tucker Whitman, who was the legislator for District 1, and kind of tried to get a better handle on what was going to be required of a legislator and the time restraints with it. And he gave me some good insight on that, and recommended that I start attending meetings so I could learn a little bit about it. So that happened, let's see, this is kind of 2023. It was like 2021. So shortly after that, after the Republican committee endorsed me in March, I started attending legislative meetings and so forth to learn the process, get familiar with what was going on in the county, what were the county issues, and how did they relate to my district. Started to do my homework to get ready to even though I hadn't been elected yet, I wanted to be prepared should I be honored to be the county legislator. So that's kind of how it got started, and it was a 2-year term, which was another, for me at the time, a positive, because I was already mayor. And one of the things that you'll hear from people is, oh, he's mayor and county legislator. Well, a lot of people have more than one job and they get paid for them. And I think I believe I've done it effectively over the 2 years. And it gave me a chance to decide whether I wanted to continue as county legislator and then back away from mayor, or say, you know what, the county, I'm not to say that maybe I don't want to be county legislator. I want to stay at the local level, in the village. Not being people say, well, they're politicians. Or at this level, you can name call whatever you want to somebody, but if people that generally put themselves out there, and I'll say this about any candidate, thank goodness we have people that are willing to do it, So it gave me a chance to see if I wanted to do it. And I liked what I was able to do at the village level. And I really liked what I was able to do at the legislative level for the county and a bigger picture. Do I think I'll go anywhere from there? No, that's not the game plan. It's the county's it. And I hope that people have in the 2-year periods have been able to observe and pay attention to what I've done, and then, put me back in that seat.
Stranger walks up to you on the street and says, Jim, how are things in Cayuga County? How do you answer that?
Well, I would start by telling them that I think in the big picture, we're in pretty good shape. We're in pretty good fiscal shape. And we are structurally, the way our county is structured is in good shape as far as how the government is run and how our county employees and the departments are run. We're no different than any other business, and I've always approached my aspirations in politics as business, which has been a challenge. Is there's always things to work on. You can always improve. If you're satisfied with where everything's at, then it would be time to step down, or move away from it. It took me a few years at the village level to get people to buy in that although we're government, we can operate like a business to a certain extent, more so than people realize. And as you may or may not know, in the village, we went from like a C- rating financially to an A++ rating in the time I've been mayor. In my first year on the county legislator, as a county legislator, our first budget, we had to accept the budget that we received from the previous legislature. And I have to assume that those people did the best job they could at putting that together. You do. You have to assume they did.
Yep.
Working from that budget, we were able to come up with a budget that reduced taxes our first year of property taxes. I was proud to be part of that and proud to pass that on not only the constituents in my district, but in the entire county. Another thing that we were able to do is we were one of 2 counties, I believe, that had sales tax on heating fuel, which I thought was interesting because we don't, in this part of the country, heat it's not a luxury, it's a necessity.
Yeah.
And we were able to eliminate that sales tax, which took about $1.7 million out of our budget of received sales tax. And people ask me, well, how are you going to make that money up? Because I can tell you it wasn't, and to my surprise, it didn't get 100% of the vote of the legislature. It was divided on party lines. Most all the Democrats voted no, and all the Republicans voted yes, and the independents. I was shocked because they didn't know what we were going to do to make up the money. And I said, we're going to do what every household has to do in our county, is we're going to tighten our belts. That's the answer. We as government, we just take money. So our responsibility as a business that just takes money, we need to spend it as wisely as possible. And we did those things. And that's just in the first 18 months I've been in the legislature. Those are 2 important things that I was proud to participate in. And I was one of the people that actually put forth the resolution on the sales tax.
Question, especially having just mentioned property taxes, do you think holding the line on property taxes becomes a more challenging task over the next, say, 2 to 3 years, given the current state of the economy and the direction it's going?
The short answer is yes. Anybody that thinks that it's not going to be has blinders on, because if you look at everything that's gone up and the average increase over the last year, whether it's food, gas, insurance, we just went through four union contracts, which I think were done in a positive manner. And a union contract is a negotiation, so there was give and take on both sides. Where you're never going to please everybody, but the majority of those groups, I think, obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, but the fact that they accepted them, that we all reached a happy medium on that. But to hold the line is going to be tougher and tougher because everything keeps increasing. Now, with and a business aspect, and that's how I'll approach this budget too, is the first thing we have to do. You always have to look at your employees and what you're paying them and what your day-to-day expenses are that you have to pay. Got to pay. You have to pay your employees. You have to pay your electric bills and utility bills. Those are the things you have to pay. Once you separate all that out, there's usually not a lot left to work with. And part of that is, knowing a key part is making that estimate of what are you going to have coming in, to make up that difference. And, property values have gone up. Hence, you naturally get an increase in income to the county based on the property assessments. So if you're holding the line and you look at the assessments going up, what's that delta difference, and how do you work that into your budget? Some of the other things that we've started on, and again, this is another thing I'm proud to be part of, is two things. One, the ARPA funding that we received as a legislative group, and I say as a group because once you're in, you have to learn to work with everybody. Right. So as a legislative group, the legislature picked 4 people to after we went through the first round of how we're going to spend our ARPA money. Obviously, getting 15 people to agree to everything is a challenge. Of course, now it's going to be 11, which even makes your ability to have to be able to negotiate better. Yeah. But I was selected. So there was two people from the Republican caucus and 2 people from the Democratic caucus to work on how we're going to spend the ARPA money. And I think that I'm proud to have worked with those 3 people thus far and picking projects that were one-time expenditures, but not only one-time expenditures, with a plan, because that money's not coming again, on how we were going to move forward. And I'll give you an example of that. Purchasing of sheriff's patrol cars. We go, okay, if we buy all these sheriff patrol cars, what are we going to do to protect the residents, the constituents, the taxpayers of this county in the future from not having to buy another bulk of cars? The plan there, like a business, is that we will put so much away. Now we have to plan this in our budget, so much away every year. So when the next time it comes up, 3 years from now, to buy a group of cars, or buy a few cars every year, and by the 5th year, the oldest cars are getting replaced, to have a plan to do that. And that is, from a business aspect, is a lot less pressure on taxes than in 5 years we got to buy 15 new cars instead of buying 3 a year for 5 years, and then those 3 come back up. And that's how we looked at things, and we'll continue. We have not we didn't receive a large sum of money for ARPA, but we've taken a lot of care in how we're spending it.
Let's talk a little bit, one more item off of that property tax section here. We've got the debate around housing, how counties, particularly rural counties where populations tend to be declining, not increasing, how those entities should approach housing. Does the property tax line get a little tougher to hold if we don't see an increase in people moving to Cayuga County? Obviously, with the Micron development in central New York, there should be some forward progress in the next few years for Cayuga County to benefit on that side. But what do you think the county should be doing to bolster the housing stock as far as that goes?
Well, you mentioned Micron. That seems to be the wild carrot that's hanging out there. One of the things that I've been an advocate of since I've been a legislator from day one is broadband. And people are not, with technology today, people, when they start looking around for housing and they look for the important things like the rural community, the safety, the school district, on that list is whether they're going to have access to broadband. You have a lot of people working from home. You have a lot of people whose jobs depend on it. We have this opportunity here to have this interview. That is one of the key components. And when I became a legislator, one of the issues in District 1 was there was a broadband project that got dropped during COVID. And I I can't say for fact, but I believe that there was never a plan to finish that. And because of my tenacity to go after our state, the state that was running the program, which was the Empire State Development Group, and get that project back on its feet. And now the town of Victory has broadband at their office. That we need to do that for the entire county. We need to go after some of this funding that's going to be available, and we need to have access to broadband throughout the county. That will help the housing stock too, because people that's what they're looking for. They want to live in the country, but they can't do that if there's no broadband available. The other thing I just want to kind of touch base on a little bit is Micron gets brought up a lot. And in the last couple of legislative meetings, and you can go look at them on YouTube, especially the last one, there was a lot of discussion about Micron. And I said, you know what, we can't forget about the businesses that have kept us afloat while this is going on. And one of them is the milk plant. And I know a lot of people, well, guess what? They're expanding. They're more than doubling their size. They're going to bring in 90 plus good paying jobs. Even if those go to people that are already in the county, those people are going to go, it's besides the housing, they're going to go to the grocery stores. They're going to get gas. They're going to do their banking locally. They're going to go out for their entertainment. So we can't forget about things like that in our county that have helped us along to get to where we are today.
Tourism, obviously, for the entire region. I know you guys are technically in central New York, but for all intents and purposes, we're calling you in the Finger Lakes.
Yes.
Yep. When it comes to tourism, the entire region is so reliant on it from an economic drive standpoint. Does it feel good, or what do you think the balance should be, given with the Micron move, and then also success stories like Cayuga Milk, for example? Do you feel like the county has a good balance, and what would you like to see moving forward in terms of balancing both the tourism side of things, then also other industries as well, to kind of diversify things?
So tourism is an economic driver. A lot of people don't realize this. District 1, which is Sterling and Victory right now, and is soon to be Sterling, Victory, and Ira, District 1 represents 27% of Cayuga County's tourism. So just think about that for a second. Let that sink in. Tourism turns into sales tax. Sales tax is what helps one of the things that Cayuga County does that some other counties don't do is the county splits the sales tax with the towns and villages. So, and I don't know if a lot of people know, and they don't split it based on who brings in the most sales tax. It's split based on population, which I think is a fair way to do it. And being the legislator for District 1 and knowing that 27% of the tourism comes in, which results in sales tax dollars, people listen when you talk. It's important to know that if you're going to be the legislator of District 1. And the drivers of that are also what brings small businesses, which are 75% of what drives business as it is around, is having those small businesses. And in District 1, we have kind of a good combination of small businesses, agricultural, and some state and local parks that draw people to District 1. So I say that agriculturally, we have Cayuga Winery that provides a tourism stop as well as a business. We have what they call the Village Central Business District, which is full of small shops and small restaurants and so forth, that 8 years ago, they didn't open up until the end of April, and they were closed by the time Halloween rolled around. Some people, I've been accused of being overly business friendly, but what that turned out to is our businesses, the few that do close, they mostly close to refresh because they're open by March 17th and they close in New Year's for those that don't stay open year round. Essentially, to me, that's pretty close to year round. And tourism, so that drawing that back to tourism, people find coming up to District 1 is it's a good, relaxing, homegrown, down-to-earth place to go with, there's no fast food restaurants. There's no, it's the pace is just right for relaxation and spending your money. So we want them to come up here.
And obviously, with a county like Cayuga, aside from Auburn, rural, which means there's a ton of ag, what are the biggest concerns you'd say at the county level that could or should be addressed over the next couple of years as far as agriculture is concerned? What are folks hearing from? What are you guys hearing from those in ag about how the county could be better for them?
So I don't think the agriculture people. Here's another thing: Cayuga County agricultural is our number one industry in the county. That's the number one, and we're the number two milk producer in the state. And I don't think that their concerns are, I think, driven more by what fuel costs, what fertilizer costs, and I'm not sure those are all things that the county as a legislator can resolve. Obviously, taking the heating fuel tax off, some of those places have big barns and facilities to heat, has had to help. One of the things I don't think we focus enough on as county legislators and as a county is our agricultural business and industry. And I think one of the things that will help that is we are one of the few counties that does not have a county fair. Now, try to picture again the fact that agriculture is our number one business and we don't have a county fair.
I will be honest, until you sent me a note earlier today, I had completely forgotten that Cayuga County does not have a county fair. It is so common and so unusual at the same time that Cayuga County does not. The question then is, why does it not, and why should it not?
So my research so far, and this would be another reason that I'd like to continue as county legislator, because I think you have to have that level of influence to talk to people. In fact, I just received a call. I have the name here somewhere on my desk from the Ags and Market in New York State. Sometimes these things, personalities get in the way of direction. And somewhere before COVID, personalities there was a number of different organizations that made up the county fair. All right. And the county fair was held on a private piece of property, which was up in Weedsport, the old dirt track. That changed owners. So the county fair had to find a home, which it still does not have. There was some personality conflicts between maybe the county itself and these 3 or 4, maybe 5 organizations that made up the county fair. And COVID only helped it further by that group disbanding. So Dan Welch, who's with Cornell Cooperative Extension, invited me to a youth fair that they've been trying to reorganize. And I went to that. Again, wouldn't have been invited if I wasn't a county legislator, and have seen this as a whole in one of the ways we can promote agriculture in Cayuga County. And as a kid, my parents always said, when you go by a farmer on a tractor in the road, always wave, and be polite. And today people are irritated that those tractors are on the road. a county fair always reminds people of how food gets to your table. And I think that message is being lost just in society in general. So that would be one of the things I'd like to focus on, should I be honored to be put back as the District 1 county legislator. And I think I've started a good basis of starting to make connections with people. Unfortunately, it's a 2-year term and it's going to be up. So I'm hoping that I can win the seat and continue that effort. The next term is a 4-year term, so that's important for people to know. And I'll talk about that later.
So yeah, to that end, let's shift gears here and talk a little bit about first responders. You know, just last week I was talking to the sheriff over there in Cayuga County, and he was talking about a recruiting event that was coming up, talking about how challenging it's been for law enforcement to recruit. Had another conversation with a supervisor in Eastern Wayne County, who was, a little frustrated about first response times. And you start to see these themes crop up, right? First response times have been challenged over the last several years in rural counties across upstate New York. Recruiting police officers, huge challenge. So when you think about all of these different things, public safety in a basket with a bunch of other stuff there, when you think about these kinds of issues, what should Cayuga County prioritize first or most urgently moving forward to maybe right the ship here a little bit in Cayuga County?
That's a great question. And part of that, the answer to that is there's no one that's more important than the other. It's like they all work together in some form or fashion. The volunteer fire service or the paid fire service, the volunteer EMS or the paid EMS providers, ambulance services, the sheriff's department, they all at some point or another run across each other throughout their endeavors to provide public safety for the constituents in the county. The challenge is, I was doing a little research on this. I work in the construction business, and what we're finding is it's kind of twofold. I hate to get into storytelling, but years ago when I was younger, I was on a job. This is 1998. I was in my 30s, and I looked around the room in construction and I said, I'm the youngest guy in this job. That's an issue. And for all of the 1990s and going into the 2000s, so we pushed college as being the only avenue to get ahead. And then combined with that, you have your baby boomers, which I'm the tail end of the baby boomers. For every 100 baby boomers that are getting out of the job market, you only have 7 to 8 people following behind. So it sometimes I'm not even sure anymore. It is the pay, because we're all fighting for the same small group of people, and I think that will somewhat level itself out. But there's things we can do to help, and we've offered this to the sheriff's department, and we can with other things. Is like we charge for the tests. If I'm thinking about being a sheriff, but I already have a job, why would I pay to take a test? It seems in government, everything gets tested, even if you're going into the service to find out what you want. And there's a physical test besides a written test. So why would we charge for those things? So in small ways, we're trying to help with those things. Our training facilities maybe need to be brought up to date. I'm, working with Riley, the EMS director, on the training facility. And when I say working with him, I think he's working with us. He's doing a great job at leading the county in some better facilities and so forth. He just needs the right people to support and the right guidance to get that done, along with our 911. Don't forget our 911 operators. Everybody's job is difficult, and one of the things that I've learned over the years of work is is showing respect to those people, no matter what their job is. Each job has its own challenges. How to make those jobs attractive and promoting them is a bigger challenge. And I think that's where we've got to find a better way to say that being a sheriff or being a firefighter, and I have friends that do both, are in both public safety departments like that, is that we somehow being a police officer or a sheriff has been looked down upon for way too long in a very short amount of time. And that drives that. And if you work for 911, you're associated with the sheriff's department. So I think finding a better way to advertise these positions is going to help do that and show that they are good paying jobs, that you can own a home, which is what everyone wants to do, no matter what their job is. Own a home, bring up a family, live in a good community, a safe community, and have access to broadband.
Yeah. Are you concerned about the viability, though, for some of these volunteer agencies, fire departments, EMS? Obviously, it's kind of a mixed bag out there with paid and volunteer services, especially in Cayuga County. But are you concerned about, because one of the things that we hear, one of the themes we hear repeatedly is, well, we aren't seeing the volunteerism that we were seeing 30 years ago, which, okay, that can be an acceptable thing. But then we're also hearing at the same time, we just had a story a couple of days ago about a ambulance corps in Northern Wayne County shutting down without much notice, without much warning. That is the trend line, unfortunately. Is there a viability concern? Do you think at some point counties will have to step in to kind of fill the gap that is inevitably created as these agencies shrink down?
Well, I hope it isn't inevitably created. My hope would again to be volunteerism is an interesting thing because it starts in my household with my parents. It started as being a high school student. It started with Boy Scouts. It started with being on a sports team and working, going to the boys club every Saturday and volunteer swim with the Easter Seals kids. Those types of, it starts at a young age. And I think, we've gotten away from that. And the other part about volunteering, I was a volunteer hockey coach, ice hockey coach, youth coach for 30 years plus. I hate to think it's been that long. But what the challenge for being a volunteer, it was the requirements that became, the training you had to take, the classes. And that's no different. These firefighters, these volunteer firefighters, the certifications, the same with the EMS. It's become almost like a second job. No, let's not even say almost. It's like a second job. I can only relate it to my work as a volunteer coach. And I know how much time that took. And that was a lot of time. And then on top of that, going out and coaching, for 26 weeks throughout the winter for a hockey season, from September until April, May. So I can't, I think some of that needs to be addressed. Some of the regulations and expenses, visiting with a couple of the volunteer fire companies in District 1 and in the new District 1, the turnout gear that they purchase, that's gone up in price. It could cost anywhere from $3,500 to $5,000 for one set of turnout gear. And the regulations are that after so many years, it's no good. Well, that may be true if you're in the Auburn Fire Department, but if you're in a volunteer fire department and you're struggling with funding and keeping volunteers, and to have to buy them a new turnout gear every 3 to 5 years, let's say it's 5 years, I'm not positive on that number, but that can become a big expense when there should be a format to inspect that equipment, or have somebody look at it instead of just arbitrarily putting an expiration date on it. Again, it's going to save somebody's life, but I think that each person, that care could be, there's things like that could be done to ease some of the pressures on these volunteer fire departments and, help them get more volunteers, and how we distribute funds to them. They all work on you got to work hard. You got to do a lot of barbecue chickens and fish fries to raise money to purchase this stuff. So there may be down the line in some way, some of the fire departments are asking to go independent. I'm not sure if that's the best way to go or not, because I've talked to independent fire departments and I've talked to volunteer fire departments, and there's pros and cons for both. So I think it's important that each community understands and comes out and supports those groups. Even if you can't be a volunteer, as a firefighter volunteer, say, there's other things you can do to help. They need people to do building maintenance. They don't have time for that anymore because of training. You could volunteer to be the building maintenance person. You could volunteer to be help do, if you're good at mechanical work, but you're not old and you're too old to fight a fire, you might be able to help keep up their engines. There's different ways that these groups can look for volunteers to do other stuff. The women's auxiliary for fire departments started not because the women years ago were going out and fighting fires like they are today, but to do those other jobs that couldn't be done when people were out fighting fires. So I think that we need to take a look in that aspect.
Yeah. And then last topic here before we get you out, upgrades to the county office building, like any old large structure. Updates need to happen from time to time. You've been in the construction business, so I'm going to throw this to you. How should the county approach updates to its office building? I would assume on a fiscally conservative line, but what are your thoughts there?
So being in our county building for the last 18 plus months, our county building hasn't had a major renovation since it's been built back in the 60s, 70s. So it's well overdue. Our employees, like any business, are deserving of a place where they can sit in their office without snow and wind coming through the windows, without elevators breaking down constantly, which is a safety issue. And it needs to be done. I think the challenge is going to be that this project, which is another reason I would, like to be able to be around to help monitor what goes on. And I think with my background and the fact that the county's looking to spend $35 to $40 million on this renovation, is there may be a couple of approaches. And one approach is to just renovate the whole thing all at once and be done with it. And the other approach, which shoulda, coulda, woulda, started maybe 5 years ago or even before that. The county general maintenance is okay, but at some point you got to say, okay, the envelope of this building's not tight anymore. It happens in your home. What do? You replace the windows. You do a bunch of stuff to the envelope. Never done. That could be a project by itself. To be fiscally responsible, and until we figure out where all the money's coming from, I myself would see this project maybe being broken up into phases. Does that mean it's going to take longer? Yes. But again, what do some people do in their own homes? We're going to renovate this section of the house. We're going to do the bathroom. Then we're going to do the kitchen. Then we're going to, I think the county may have to take a similar approach. The elevators are so bad. And admittedly so. I've been working with Gary Duckett, our maintenance director of facilities, and I asked the county to stop nickel diming these things before someone gets stuck or someone gets injured. Make that a project of its own. I know a little bit about elevators. I know that we could come up with an elevator package to replace those while we're waiting for this project, this county renovation building to be done. And I know people in the industry that can help us pre-plan for future upgrades once the renovation comes in, for things like security and safety in the elevators, with regard to things like card readers, and which will, right now, our building is open access to anybody that walks in. One of the things that I promoted after being in the county building and happened to talk to some employees riding the elevator was that they felt unsafe in the building, not because of the elevators, but because of access to the building. I was able to get funding and supported by all the legislators. When we say we maybe did some of the legwork, but it does take your other legislators to help you along, with this. And we got funding, and we are now, by the first week in October, we will have a bag device and a walkthrough device, metal detecting devices. So anybody that enters the building can be inspected. Before that, they just checked your name. They checked it against, they checked your license against a computer screen that verified that, you weren't a bad person. That didn't tell you whether you were carrying a knife or not. People, there's a lot going on. And I think that I hope the employees are happy with this change. And it's equipment that we can incorporate into the renovation project, which was another important thing. We made sure we bought equipment that could be incorporated into a renovation in the next 3 years. So I was proud about doing that too for our employees.
Absolutely. Jim, appreciate the time you taking it today. Best of luck with the rest of your campaign. Where can folks learn more about your campaign, or what's the best way to get a hold of you if they live in District 1 and want to chat?
Well, if they live in District 1, they can go to my Facebook page, which is Committee to Elect James Basile. My phone number is also available, and I'll give it out here publicly, 585-313-4911. They can call me, or they can email me at jbasile14@yahoo.com. And what I would really like to step off before I leave and say to people is, your voting ballot is your ticket, your hiring ticket for someone for the next 4 years. And please do your research. Please look at what I've done over the last 2 years and understand whoever you hire, you cannot fire. You'll have to live with that choice for 4 years. And I'd like to think that I could stand on my record alone. I know that sometimes party divide gets involved. I know I'm running as a conservative. I'm endorsed by the Conservative Party, but I'm a lifelong Republican, and I haven't changed the way I think as far as values go since I was able to vote when I turned 18.
That'll do it for this edition of FLX Today. If you'd like to hear more conversations like this one, check out the show on your favorite podcast platform or subscribe to the fingerlakes1.com YouTube channel. Have a great day, and we will see you next time.